Right, so with it being the end of the season, obviously transfer rumours are circulating worldwide, and it's probably one of my best times of the year. Just obviously to hear all the rumours that are related to certain players on your own club. To do things a little bit different, what we're going to do is we're just going to probably do this maybe weekly, and we're just going to speak over the certain topics that have been in the news in the last week, and just basically touch on each player, maybe a couple of minutes, and just decide whether we think good signings, bad signings, basically our thoughts on each individual. So the first one, which is probably the most popular story that most people will want to know about, which is Jadon Sancho. News on Jadon Sancho, obviously heavily linked with Man United for quite a while. Will he, won't he? At the moment, it seems like it's more he won't, due to the reports coming out of Borussia Dortmund. Any thoughts on that, Ty?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. We obviously did a podcast a while back about Man United, about £50 million, and thinking, we laughed at it and we said, who do Man United think they are? £50 million, it doesn't make a difference if it's middle of a pandemic. Dortmund have set the price of 100 million.
Yeah.
You're not going to get him anything less, and it's been back and forth, and it's been a bit of a typical Man United recruitment strategy over the last few years, and it's been a bit of a mishmash, to be honest. Say we're going to go for this player, and they end up paying what they've been asked for, just make themselves look stupid, or they go around and they don't end up buying him. Obviously, Dortmund put a date on it as well, which is now passed, and it doesn't look like it's going to happen. And then Man United is still left, obviously the Europa League final sort of emphasised the need for them to have a bit more quality in attacking areas, because apart from the sort of first 11, it's a pretty weak squad. And I'd even say you've got some pretty average players in that first 11 as well. I just think some of the results and scores have papered over the cracks. But Sancho, 100 million, it's one of those, isn't it? He's young, so he's obviously going to have resale value. He'll obviously improve their team. He'll improve most teams in the world because he's a quality footballer.
Yeah.
I don't see him going to Man United, for what they were doing. They're not going to go. I think Dortmund are quite, firm on where they stand with that.
At 100 million, I think he's a good buy. I think, like you say, he's got resale value. They will get a good chunk of change if he ever decides to move. And if he doesn't decide to move, then there's a reason why he doesn't move. He becomes pretty much a legend. He stays there for the next 10 years. He's only, maybe 20-odd-year-old, 21-year-old, something along those lines. So I think it would be a cracking signing, but like you said, I think they've left it too long. They were never going to. We said originally 50 million. That. Let's not get things twisted. Obviously, Man United, still Man United. They can still pull players, especially like when we spoke about it. It was up for debate whether they were going to be in the top or whether they were going to be in Champions League or what have you. They obviously secured Champions League, so that gives them that little bit more bargaining power with the player himself. We said originally that 50 million, you're obviously not going to get anywhere near the player on that amount. But yeah, it doesn't look like it's developing. Will it be a good signing? Yes. Do I think it'll happen this summer? No.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you. So the next one we've got is Thiago Alcantara, the little magician from Bayern Munich.
Yeah.
Will he come to Liverpool? You go first.
Every fibre of my being wants to say yes, absolutely, 100% yes, because I think it'll complement us 100%. I think it'll change our formation. I think he probably deployed alongside like Fabinho, and I've just been thinking about how we would possibly play him, and I think that would be the best way forward. Like he can play a little bit further forward. But I think he will flourish alongside Fabinho, because if you think of Fabinho, his speciality is breaking up the play, and he's quite good at distributing passes forward, whereas Thiago, for me, is the exact opposite. He's quite good defensively breaking up the play, and he's very good at pressing, but he is absolutely unbelievable, and there's no one like him in that position that sits in front of the back four or even in between the back two and can distribute so many key passes. Every single thought in his mind is, can I pass it forward first time? If I can't pass it forward, return, wait for the options to open up. So to answer your question, will he come? I I don't think he will, just because I don't think it's a priority for Liverpool. But I think we desperately need a player of that ilk, just because this season we will be playing against, I'd say, 9 to 18 of the 20 teams that are going to play behind the ball. If you think of last season, when we played against the likes of Manchester United, Tottenham and Arsenal, it was purely like 11 men behind the ball. This season, it's going to be exactly the same, especially because we're champions and we're going to need someone like Thiago to break teams down.
Yeah, so I've got a slightly different view to yours. Obviously, the reason, I mean, Bayern have obviously put a price around 30 million euros. Mm-hmm. His contract runs out in June. You can obviously sign a pre-contract agreement for January. Liverpool holding up from paying that 30 million because effectively we can get it for free in 5 months. Mm-hmm. The other sort of flip side with that is Wijnaldum is on like a year left as well. So does he move on? Koeman's obviously a big fan. He's just taken over at Barca. Does he come in? If he goes, Thiago comes in. The other thing that you were talking about, Fabinho, I actually think, Klopp's obviously he's mentioned this before. With obviously Lovren going, I think he's played Fabinho at centre half before. I think he can almost use Fabinho as a centre half. Thiago goes in as the 4. It just opens it up a bit more. Now I think Fabinho as a 4 is brilliant, even with the ball at his feet. But Thiago's like just a different level in terms of passing and creativity from that deeper line position. But I mean, if Fabinho plays, and obviously we've got Gomez and Van Dijk at the back. It could go Henderson, Fabinho, and Thiago. If Wijnaldum goes, but even it might go Wijnaldum, Fabinho, Thiago, depending on what the game is. I mean, we're really strong in the midfield area. I mean, we've got Naby Keita who's really coming into some form as well. Milner obviously backs up, and it's probably why he allowed Lallana to go with Curtis Jones coming through. But I actually think this is going to be a close one. And I think eventually we'll get it over the line, just because I think there's got to be some sort of negotiation, because 30 million for 5 months is quite a bit.
Do you think we'll get him in this window?
Yeah, because the window's up until October, isn't it? So I think there'll be 5th of October, I think this is the date.
Yeah.
So I think there'll be quite a few done late on as we sort of progress, just because where we are and how everything
I was saying to my my brother yesterday, I just can't wait for the Bayern game to end tonight, just so I can see Thiago picking up his phone as soon as that final whistle blows. It feels like we're just waiting and we're waiting.
Hello, Jurgen.
Yeah.
Hello, Jurgen. You there?
But it is just like a waiting game for us Liverpool fans, because, obviously we're talking about this is just going to be a couple of minutes of per play, but we're Liverpool fans, so we're going to go a little bit longer into this one. But it just feels like this will probably be the first time that we bought a ready-made world-class player since
Van Dijk.
Yeah, but even then you say Van Dijk. We bought Van Dijk from Southampton. He's class. Is he ready-made world class? I just can't. You think of maybe even Mascherano, even Torres were not where they finished when they left us. So world class wise, I think it'll be the first time we probably go on.
I think I agree with it and I know what you mean. It's that quality of player that's playing for one of the elite clubs and is in his prime and is coming to us.
And he wants to.
You know what I mean? Yeah. And you always seem to find those players go from Bayern to Real to Bayern to Barca to PSG. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But we're on that top table now.
Yeah. You've hit the nail on the head. This is exactly what Man United would do. Back 10 years ago, or even 5 years ago, this is exactly what City would do.
20 years ago. It was shit 10 years ago as well.
This is true. This is the type of thing like City. I'm so surprised Guardiola is not all over this. With him being a former manager of his, but if he wants to come to us, I'll happily have him. Do I think it'll happen this window? Probably not. It depends on the Genie situation, but I will take him in a heartbeat. I just hope it does happen.
Yep.
So next we'll move on to Chelsea player. Chelsea have been doing a lot of early signings. Obviously, they've got Ziyech over the line. They've got Timo Werner over the line. It looks like now they're looking to add Ben Chilwell. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I mean, who's you up against? Marcus Alonso and Emerson. Do you know, he's a better left back than him, and it obviously gives him a bit more. I think Lampard eventually wants to play 4 at the back, and he's almost had to play 3 at the back because Alonso's the strongest left-sided defender, and Alonso's a wing-back. If anything, he's not really a full left-back.
Yeah.
So I think Ben Chilwell coming in, and I think he's really building something there. I mean, the signings they bought, I'm glad they bought a defender. Well, I say I'm glad. It's good to see them buy a defender and not another 10 or a winger. Do you know what I mean? Because they've just got like 20 strikers. It's like, any danger, lads? At the back, help us out. We've got Kepa behind us, who's pretty shit, and he's going as well. So, well, no, not Kepa. We've got Caballero behind us. What is he like? Man City's third choice. Yeah, do you know what I mean? So it's just no. I think it'll be I think 50 million's the figure that's been. I don't know if it's confirmed, but it looks like it's going to go ahead. Chilwell's obviously, is it England's number 1? Is it first choice left back as well?
Yeah, I'd say so. I think with the performances of Luke Shaw before he got injured. He might have been pushed, but he is definitely England's number 1 as things stand.
Yeah. No, absolutely. So I think that's a good signing for Chelsea. I think 50 million is the going rate for a decent fullback. Man City obviously paid 40, 50 for good fullbacks, a few years ago.
Yeah.
And obviously
it's
down the line,
it's a good time to be a Chelsea supporter at the moment. Obviously with the ban lifted, Frank Lampard, he's just playing Football Manager. He's just like, yep, I'll have him.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's a dream for a manager, and they were coming on strong towards the end of the season. Obviously, they lost the FA Cup final against Arsenal, but they still looked really impressive when they came at Anfield, and with those additions, and I'm presuming a couple more, they'll look strong for the season coming.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. Next one we've got is another potential Chelsea signings, Thiago Silva. Again, another one after the Champions League finals. I wonder how that phone call's going to be. Thiago!
But this one is interesting to me. But you as a centre-back, you can obviously appreciate him more than what I can. What do you think on this?
Oh, I think Thiago Silva's a top class centre half. I mean, he's always played for Milan, Brazil, played for Tottenham. I don't know if this is true. I think when he first started, I think he was a winger, and he got converted. I'm sure he was an attacking player. He was one of those defenders who was an attacking player.
Yeah.
And then as it he's just ended up being a centre half, and he's been brilliant. I went to watch him live a few years ago. It's about 10 years ago now, when the Olympics were on. It was Brazil against South Korea at Old Trafford. And he literally just walked through the game. I don't even think he got his sweat or anything. He would just literally pass the ball, just positioning, everything, just top notch. Just more his own organisational skills. And I think we have mentioned it before that Chelsea defensively are weak, and especially in those centre half areas. They've got what I'd call defenders, old school defenders like your Zuma or Rudiger or Tomori. They'll just tackle and they'll. Whereas Thiago Silva's more composed. He's more of a modern defender, and he'll look to play. And I just think him going into Chelsea, and if they get that over the line, I think that'll be a really big signing for them. That'll be a real statement of intent.
Totally agree with you. If we think about what we've just said about like Thiago Alcantara, like they're bringing in a ready-made world-class player. Obviously, he's not going to be there for the next 3, 4, 5 years, but what he can do is Chelsea have got a lot of good youngsters, young defenders. And more than anything, he'll help them come along. So again, I think that'll be a really good sign. And is he available on a free?
I think he is. Yeah, he's available. I mean, he's obviously sort of like in his 30s, but he's absolutely fine. I mean, if you got Thiago sticking with Rudiger, suddenly that defence looks a lot better. Do you know what I mean? Thiago will talk to him on it. It just makes it huge. You got Chilwell there, and then he's obviously Azpilicueta. I think Azpilicueta will eventually get phased out as well. With Reece James doing quite well in that area.
It'd be quite surprising to me, obviously as a player, he will probably want to come to the Premier League and maybe finish his career, showing that he can do it at this level. But it'd be surprised to me if Barcelona don't come along, because they seem to constantly be crying out for a good centre back, and with PK saying what he was saying, I'll step down effectively if need be. They need a good centre back there for a couple of years, just to sort things out. And I think someone like Messi will be buzzing if they could get him over the line.
Yeah, absolutely. Next one, I think it's just been confirmed at Arsenal. Gabriel going from Lille, obviously defender, and I think just getting him over the line.
So is that confirmed by the club, or is it Fabrizio Romano confirmed?
I think our source Fabrizio Romano, when he says "Here we go," he's got that over there, and I think Arsenal confirmed it as well. I might be saying, but that looks like it's pretty much done. But yeah, again, a defender, and you think Arsenal need him. You know, they've got. I mean, they've obviously. I remember Arsenal, Man City, and David Luiz, and that's mad. He came on, and you know the pundits were saying, "Oh yeah, you know, I don't know, Arteta's not going to offer him a new contract." And then a few weeks later, he's offered a new contract. It's gone. And obviously he likes him. He wants to play out from the back. And David Luiz, whatever deficiencies he's got as a defender, Arteta wants his team to be a forward-thinking, progressive, attacking team. So they're generally going to have more of the ball. So having a player like David Luiz, who's not a horrendous defender, he's played for Brazil. It's just his risks get highlighted. Do you know what I mean? And I think the games. I think the game against Man City, I thought he was brilliant. So I think there is a player in there. Maybe he just needs a bit of an arm around him. And obviously getting Gabriel in there as well with him, I think that would be a real good positive for him. I don't know much about him, I'll be honest. But I think getting, that there was a bit of competition for him, but getting him over the line, it just shows the intent from Arteta. He knows what he's doing. We've obviously got Gabriel. And we'll talk about the next player that they've got in over the line as well. But yes, they've got him. And there is a strategy from Arsenal, which is good to see, because I think that the stronger the Premier League and there's more competition it is, the better it is for the league. You get better games.
That's the number one position that Arsenal have constantly struggled with since the days of when they won things, like when they won the bigger trophies. And I'm like you. I don't know much about Gabriel, but what they do need is a solid centre back that can rub off on the other players around them. Like if you think of the likes of Joe Matip, Joe Gomez, what Van Dijk does for those. That's exactly what they need. And again, we've just talked about Thiago Silva. Maybe he was something that could have rubbed off on, David Luiz, for example. David Luiz, he's a funny one. I know this is meant to be about the transfer speculation, but again, we don't know too much about the other players. So it should be interesting to see if David Luiz can up his game with this new guy alongside of him. Do you think Arsenal can go places with David Luiz?
There is a player in there. I mean, regardless of what the so-called pundits always nail him. You don't play for PSG. You don't play for Chelsea. You don't play for your top teams. You don't play for Arsenal. You don't play for Brazil if you're shit. Do you know what I mean? Thiago Silva's obviously played for these top players and top teams. I think they can, but I think it is one of those players that you need to tell that you are the cornerstone of my defence. He almost needs that arm around his shoulder. He needs constantly to be reminded how important, how good he is. And I just think he's got that arrogance as a defender, which is good, but it just needs to be checked. When he's up against someone else, I think sometimes he's got that little bit of Lovren about him. When I mean about that, if everything's a fight, everything's got to be won. Do you know what I mean? If he's up against someone, just got to learn someone stronger or more powerful than him, just drop off. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just nick the ball off them. You don't have to turn it into a fight.
Yeah, bang on. Pick your fights, and that's exactly what Lovren did not do.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the next player is that we're going to talk about again is, but this time leaving Chelsea, is Willian. Obviously moved on to Arsenal. I think he'll be a pretty solid signing. It was one of those ones where he was linked with Liverpool, and I could never make my mind up whether I felt like he was going to be a good sign or a bad sign, because effectively he is a really hard worker. He's a very skillful player. I think he played against Tottenham, might have been last season or the season before, and it was probably one of the best individual performances I'd ever seen from any single player in the Premier League. He was absolutely amazing that day, and like I say, it was only within the last couple of years, so he's still got it, but he just never seemed to have the total trust of the last couple of managers, and that I think he will be a good signing for Arsenal, but I wouldn't be too excited about him. But what about yourself?
I like him. I always liked him. I think he's a really good player.
Yeah.
He's got such sharp feet, and he's like half a yard whips across, and if he's essentially half a yard shot away, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he's a good player. I just felt with Chelsea and obviously the players that Lampard's bought in. I think Chelsea offered him a 2-year contract, Arsenal offered him a 3-year contract, and towards the end of his career he's gone like, well, I can go to Arsenal, I don't need to move home, I'm in London, do you know what I mean? So I don't think it was anything to do. It just shows, what we call lack of loyalty of footballers. It's like, but you've got to sort of think your own family and future. So it's 2 years to 3 years, slightly different to other sort of situations. But no, I think it'll be a good signing for him. Is an upgrade for them in certain positions. That I think he's better than Pepe. I'm just not a fan of Pepe at all. I mean, I know he's scored a few goals. He just sort of, he's like what do I describe him as? Like a slow motion version of Robin, where he'll go down there, he'll cut in and he'll shoot, but he does it so slow, and he just, what he's going to do before he's going to do it.
Yeah,
but as you get players like
but you can't stop
it. Yeah,
it.
like with Robin, with like Robin or Messi, you know he's going to go on his left and he's going to shoot, but you can't stop it. With Pepe, he's going to go that, but you can stop it. Do you know what I mean? I just don't think he's been great since he's come. Maybe next year, he'll do better. I'd imagine Willian will play off the right, or Aubameyang off the left. I don't know. Actually, I've heard rumours Lacazette might be on his way out, so Aubameyang could be down the middle, and then Willian and Pepe. But again, you really don't want Willian to come and stop and hinder the progress of someone like Saka, who I think is going to become a superstar.
Yeah.
So it's just sort of that balancing act of making sure we get the youngsters. When you get these the older sort of more experienced players coming in to finish their career, you just don't want them to hinder the young ones. And that's across any club, like just Arsenal.
That was my worry, like with the Arsenal sign of Willian. You don't want him to hinder, and that's one of the reasons why I wasn't too devastated when Liverpool didn't get him. Don't get me wrong, really good player, like I say, phenomenal on his day, but you're just thinking, is he coming for a payday? Do certain players come to Arsenal thinking it's going to be a bit more of an easier ride than what it would have been if, let's say, I was to stay at Chelsea with Frank Lampard and fight it out for my position? And that's my only worry with him.
No, absolutely. So we'll just move on to our last player for this podcast for transfer updates and news is Kostas Similiakas. Can't pronounce his name.
I'm not going to say.
We'll just call him Kostas. We'll just call him Kostas. Okay, so we'll go with Kostas. He's Liverpool's new left back. Obviously, we went for Jamal Lewis from Norwich. We said 10 million. Norwich were like 20 million. Liverpool were like, no, 10 million. And they just felt the difference in prices was too much and they weren't going to negotiate. And it was Norwich weren't going to shift and Liverpool weren't going to shift. So Liverpool were like, great, thank you. We'll move on to our alternative. And they've gone for Kostas. And obviously he's come in and I think he's played a friendly already. Yeah. And it just shows the difference in recruitment from what I call elite, top-level clubs who are run right and the recruitment's in place to someone like, the Sancho saga, because it's the easiest one because it constantly happens every year. Yeah. They're going to buy something and it doesn't, and they're going to argue with haggle with prices, but they don't. Whereas Liverpool, we'll give you Jamal Lewis. We've got a price of him for £10, 10 million.
Take it.
We wish for 10 million. Norwich, they've gone at 20. Well, that's too big a difference. We'll go to our alternative, and they've gone right. Here you go. I think at 30, 40 million euros.
Yeah.
And that's fine. And they'll be like, yeah, brilliant, that's fine. And it was done in a couple of days. And that's just like top quality recruitment. And I think Chelsea have done really well as well. So they've gone ahead. They've gone Ziyech, Werner, and everyone else they want to get.
I like what you said there. Like we don't mess about anymore. Like if you think back to the Fabinho sign, we didn't know nothing about the Fabinho sign until it was happening. Obviously the Thiago thing's rumbled on a little bit, but that will generally happen when you've got a player that's running out his contract. So I really do like the way that we're going about our business. Now, as to what Kostas is capable of, he looks absolutely world class on YouTube.
I think everyone does, yeah.
Yeah, so but
it's just one of those, I always think, I think when I was younger, I always used to think, right, if you spend a load of money for a player, he's going to be good. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And then, you compare the best left back in the league's probably Robbo. I think, we'll go Andy Robertson. Got him for 8.5 million. And I was thinking that's a bit, and I seen him at Hull. I was like, yeah, he's good at Hull as well. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, 8.5 million compared to, yeah. And then we buy him for 12, 13 million euros or whatever it is. And I'm like, I've not seen him play, but obviously I trust our recruitment team.
Yeah. But
again, I'd imagine him to be a better backup, than Milner. The thing with Milner is he sort of fit in a few positions, but he puts a 6, 7 out of 10 every game, which is fine. But I think where Klopp wants to be, and he's obviously got Trent and Nico Williams as his backup on the right-hand side. He obviously wanted Robbo and someone else to give him a bit of cover there. So he's identified where he needs to be. And obviously the Thiago thing, I think if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. I think we're fine.
Yeah.
It's not one of those where we're going to lose any of our front three.
Yeah, it's good that we've got that balance, like you're saying there. With Milner, you know, he's always going to cut back on his right hand side. You know, if Andy Robertson, like he's been out a couple of times, he's been injured this year. If we've got Costas coming in, we've still got that left hand side that's still got that balance. So really happy with that. But if you're done on that, I just wanted to discuss one more thing that came into my mind, which is someone that I don't usually feel sorry for, and it's Jose Mourinho and his signings over the last couple of days. He's I think it might have been yesterday that he said in an interview that something like he was really stupendously happy with their signings, and it was kind of like a really sarcastic remark. I can't remember what it was. I don't actually know whether it was sarcastic, but what he said, it had to be sarcastic because of who they've signed. You know, I think they've signed.
I think with Mourinho, it's definitely going to be sarcastic, and let's not beat about the bush. You know, he's just like any danger of opening your fucking checkbook.
Yeah, he said. I can't remember who he signed. He signed an outfield player, and then obviously they've signed Joe Hart. Now that club, that is a club that was competing with us in the Champions League final a couple of seasons ago, and I just, you know, as sorry as I can as a Liverpool fan towards a Tottenham fan, I am that. I feel sorry for them because to have Joe Hart as effectively the number one player that you're linked with that everybody knows of, it's a sad time for them. I don't. Where's all the money?
I mean, they've obviously got to pay the ground back and Daniel Levy just tight as fuck. I mean, the fuse they've got Højbjerg in from Southampton.
That was it.
That's what they did. They bought him for 15 million, and I think they sold Kyle Walker-Peters for 12 million. So effectively, he's cost them £3 million. And they got Joe Hart on a free, and there's talk of Ndombele going to, I think, is it Milan or Inter? I think it's one of the Milan clubs. Milan, and they're like, no, you know, he's not going to go. And I'm just like, sort of thinking, it's the same issue with them every time. They need a cover for Kane, because when he's out, there obviously is a huge drop off in terms of quality.
Yeah.
And I mean, Spurs first 11, everyone's fit. They will compete for the top four, but football doesn't work like that. There's injury, suspension, everything else that comes in the way. And then you've got like 7 of your regular 11 and the other 4 that come in, and there's a big drop-off. And again, it's depending on what positions that drop-off happens as well.
I just see
I get that. What I think...
Yeah, I just see Mourinho, you know, it's going to start turning. It's going to start turning as it normally does, and it's going to start turning earlier than it normally does after this transfer window, unless they get someone in. But going back, I didn't state my actual point, which was Joe Hart. He's actually going to Spurs as a backup keeper. Now, he's not the worst backup keeper, but going from where he was to where he is, you know, even in Italy, for me, that was a good move for him. But what do you think of that as from his standpoint, and also as from a Tottenham fan's standpoint as a backup goalkeeper?
I think as backup is absolutely fine. Lloris is obviously his number one. It's not really. Is he third choice? Because they've got Vorm as well, aren't they? No, not Vorm. They've got the other guy. No, not Vorm. They've got the other guy who played in the Champions. I can't remember his name. His name escapes me now. But they've got him as. Is he going to be second, or is Hart going to be second? So they've effectively got 3 goalkeepers. I mean, Joe Hart's. I think Joe Hart's pretty much gone. He's just like, you know, pretty much anyone who takes me, I'll go. I don't care being the third choice keeper.
It's a shame.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it is. But I mean, does he really want to drop into the Championship? I think when he was at Torino, when Man City, I think the fans really took to him, and I really believe if he sort of decided to stay there, it would have worked out well for him. And it's again that bravery of English players not going abroad and playing. I think it's obviously there seems to be a pathway into Germany, but sort of rest of Europe not so much. But yeah, no, I think you know, Hart's career's over, and he's going to end up being like second or third. He'll end up being like, what's his name? The guy, Scott Carson at Man City, isn't he? Like third choice keeper, and he's just like, I saw a tweet the other day. He's like, he's still playing. Like he's Man City. I'm like, what? You know, like bonkers. But yeah, thanks everyone. That concludes this week's podcast for transfer update news. Cheers, guys.